Good evening and welcome to Scrapbooking with a Twist. This is Carolyn, and we are going to make the weekly swap for Tweedledee. I started making something different because I was going to make this cute little owl that I found, and then I looked at the list of embellishments, the different weekly swaps, and there was an owl one that was going to come up in a few weeks, and I thought, well, I better not do that. So I found this one, and I'll just be perfectly honest, until I actually started putting this, kind of finalizing this and putting it together, I didn't like it. I was mad at it. The blacks did not cut well. I even tried it with a different type of paper, and I had to take my little scissors and do a bunch of fussy cutting and cleaning up and things like that. I like to never, as a matter of fact, I cut 7, and I think I ended up being able to get about 5. So I was just kind of, just not happy with it. But then when I actually started assembling it, I liked it. And I like it a lot. But this is what it looked like originally. This is what I found on Cricut that I wanted to do. Let me tell you, cutting that little fine line when the black wasn't cutting good anyway, that didn't work. So I really didn't care for that because it wouldn't hold up. They just fell all over the place. And so I didn't like that anyway. So I decided I would cut that wire, I assume, that they're sitting on, away. And so I just made my own branch and put them on the branch. And I like it a lot better. So like I said, once I got going, and then there were all these little tiny pieces for the eyes and the little beak, and now they were on paper that cut good, so I couldn't complain about that. But anyway, this is what we're going to make. I like it better on the branch than I did on the wire, and trust me, that wire was a loss when it was cutting, and then there was just no stability to the embellishment. Well, even to just, it really wouldn't have been after I got the layers on the black, and so I just said, I don't like that wire anyway, so we're not going to do that. All right, so the first, I did do some pre-things because there are a lot of little steps to this. I've already inked, and I just barely touched them with the ink, so there's not much inking, but I did all of the eyes, I did the little wings, I did everything. So I wanted to pre-do that. I did leave one set of eyes to assemble, just to show you the process of that, like you couldn't figure that out. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and glue these little birds together, and I'm going to do the twist while I'm doing something else. So we're going to start with this little yellow one, and we're going to glue it together. Like I said, I just was pretty disillusioned with this when I started, and then after I really got to the point of being able to assemble it and everything, I ended up really liking it. But I like it much better with the branch than I do with that little wire that they had it on. See, I got to be sure I keep these straight because they go on there a certain way, and that's it. My glue is about empty. Like I said, these go on there a certain way, and I just got that one shifted around. There we go. And I use several different kinds of paper. Like this is got the texture on that back side, but it all worked out. And I just went with their colors. I started to change colors, and then I thought, you know, theirs is cute. I think I'll just go with it. So it certainly would go on a multicolored layout, but I can see me using this because anytime we all get together, or I have, you know, 4 of my grandsons or whatever, this could be a cute little embellishment to go on just about anything. All right, so there's that. Now I'm going to put the eyes on next. And so I'm going to start with this purple one. And I just kind of kept the eyes doing pretty much what theirs did. Just kind of, this one was kind of cross-eyed. So I left him that way. And the green one was looking up like, oh my goodness, kind of like rolling his eyes at this other one. So we're going to do that. Get him looking up. It's like he's rolling his eyes. And then the red one is looking down at the one that's upside down. Like, oh my, what are you doing? And then this one is the one that's upside down. And he's just looking up like, oh, I'm in a mess. And this is the one, whoops, that I've got to actually build the eyes. So let's just build these eyes right here. So the blue goes on first. And then the little black part, and not much of the blue actually shows, but it does make it cute. And that's how you get the direction they're looking, so it really does make it cute. And then let's get those on there. Like, oh my goodness. Okay, now let's get their little beaks on there. It took me forever to get these where I could assemble them though, because I was having to do so much cleaning up and like fussy cutting because it didn't cut all the way through the paper. So I don't know if it, now some of it did, some of it cut great. Like the green cut well, the red cut well, but that black was just terrible. And like I said, I even tried it on a different black paper and it still wasn't. That, you know, there are just some papers that I say, that it's like they have rag in them, and most blacks are that way. I have trouble with oranges sometimes. This was a really good orange, but I have had orange paper that was just ragged. Okay, now we can put the wings on. They all just have one wing except the little yellow one who's in the mess. And there's really not a right or wrong way. They look cute no matter what you do with them. And then this one goes underneath. And then the other one goes on top. I hope I'm in frame. I was struggling to get it set a while ago. Okay, so we've got all of our little birds assembled. Then I'm going to show you how I made the limb. And while I'm doing a little bit of fussy cutting on it, I'll do the twist. But I just got out a piece of old white cardstock. It was kind of trashy looking. And just started cutting to make this little limb shape. And I do that kind of stuff all the time. And I encourage you not to be afraid to try it. I mean, this is a piece of junk cardstock. If it didn't work, I just put it in the trash. So don't be afraid to try those things. But anyway, I just cut that pattern for my limb, and I thought, yeah, that looks okay. And then I kind of set the birds on it, and it worked okay. Then I took some scraps that I had in my brown scrap file, and ran them through. I have a wood grain embossing folder. So I ran them through my wood grain embossing folder. And now I'm going to, let me move my little birds up here out of the way. I'm going to do a little bit of inking on this, and I'll show you what I did to get it here. So after I embossed it, I'm doing this with black soot. I'm just going to, the first time I'm going to go with the grain. Let me see where I have this drawn. Okay. I'm just going to go with the grain. And then if I want it a little darker, I'll go against the grain. And it kind of helps that grain to stand out too. So let's just kind of give it a little bit of sideways here just to pick up on some of the things maybe that didn't get much. I had to re-ink my little ink pad, and okay. And then I just took that pattern and I traced it on the back side of this. I didn't want to trace it on the front side. I traced it on the back side, and now we're just going to fussy cut it. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to do the twist. The twist tonight comes from Mark 9:24, and then I'll go back and give you a tiny bit of the backstory. And it says, "And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe. Help thou mine unbelief." Jesus had just listened to this father tell him about his son, who we probably would say he had seizures or something like that. And the father said, you know, this comes over him, and like he's fallen in the fire, and he's fallen in the water. It's very dangerous, and it's just terrible. And so he says, if you can, Lord, heal him. And so Jesus says, well, anything is possible for those who believe. And that's when the man says, well, I believe, but help my unbelief. And so the part of that I want to talk about and use for the twist tonight is the help my unbelief. You know, I believe, and I mean, I do, I believe. And I believe that God can do absolutely anything, but there are just times that I need to say that same thing. I do believe, but help my unbelief. You know, I've had those moments when I really felt that way, like I do believe, but I just need you to strengthen my faith. Sometimes our faith is weak, and we need God to help us strengthen our faith. And that was, I think, where this father was. He believed, but he just didn't know if he had enough, you know. And of course, it's not us that makes it happen anyway. It's God that makes it happen. But sometimes, you know, I think we don't want to admit that we have doubts, or that our faith is a little bit weak. That's the part I think that we struggle with, is admitting that. And really, all God wants us to do is just be honest. Just be honest with him. We're his children, and he wants us to be honest. And he knows our heart already. He knows when we struggle and when our faith is weak, and when we have doubts. He already knows that. And so he just wants us to be honest and tell him, you know, Lord, I do believe, but I'm struggling right now, and I need you to strengthen me. And so I think that's what that father was doing. I think that's what that father was saying. And I know in my own life that sometimes I have to say that. And sometimes I have to pray that prayer, you know, when things are tough and rugged, or things are just not going the way I wish they would. That's the prayer that I have to pray, is, Lord, just strengthen my faith. Just like that father, help my unbelief. So that is the twist for tonight. Now then, we have this. I'm going to look at it a little bit, maybe touch it a little more with some ink in some places, and then I'm going to ink it good around the edges. So let's get our ink back out and ink our edges. And I think that really kind of perks it up and picks it up. So let's just give it a really good heavy inking around the edges. And like I said, there is nothing special about this limb. I just started cutting, and like I said, it may take 2 or 3 tries sometimes, but it's just paper, and it won't hurt a thing to throw those tries away. But I didn't have anything, and I did not like the wire. It just wasn't working. So let me get this finished up. And then we will put our birds on our branch. This is a holiday weekend, so I have 3 grandsons in there eating supper, and I told them, I said, I gotta run make a little fast video. And they said, okay, we'll stay in here. They've got their, after they eat supper, they've got their video game in there if they want to, but anyway, they were eating supper. I'm going to trim this end just a little bit, just to kind of keep it from being quite so squared off. I may actually trim it down some more, depending on how much space our birds take. But I really liked the way the limb turned out in comparison to them just sitting on that wire. Okay, so there's our limb. Actually, I think I'll keep this paper to glue onto so I don't get as much glue on my my hands wiped off a little bit. I'm telling you, inking around those eyes and those little wings, I had ink all over me. All right, let's get this little fella on here first. Let's see. You know what? I inked the side. This one's going to be different. I inked this side, which this is the side that I've done it on those, but what difference does it make? I mean, it doesn't make any difference which way he's on this limb. Whether he's on this limb or that limb, it does not matter. So we're just going to do it this way so that I don't have to go back and re-ink. Right, so he's just dangling by 1 foot down here on this bottom limb. And it has a cute little saying with it. It says, there's always one, but I didn't make that to put with it. It's not probably what I would use. So here's this one, and he is just looking down at him like, oh, you are in a mess. And then let's put the purple one. And then the green one. And there we have our birds on our branch. And one of them is definitely in trouble. Okay, there we go. I think that's it. We've got our birds built. We have our branch. We've got it all done. So let me see if I can get you a close-up. Like I said, that's what I started with, and this is what I ended with, and I actually like what I ended with better than what I started with, and I guess that's a good thing. I just want to thank you for dropping by my channel. I want to thank you for all the sweet comments I get and all the thumbs up that I get, and if you haven't subscribed yet, I would love for you to subscribe. It helps our channel grow, and I love your comments. You're so kind and you're so sweet, and I do love your comments. So have a blessed day and be a blessing to someone else.